Welcome to this episode of No Chords But The Truth podcast in association with the British Country Music Festival. My name is Matt Spracklen and I am sat here with my good friend Tim Prottey-Jones at Bertie Blossoms in Notting Hill. We've just had some lovely dinner and some beautiful drinks, and we've had an incredible conversation all about Tim's journey into country, his musical theatre hiatus, and his insight to the British country music scene. So without any further ado or any more nonsense from me, this is the conversation with Tim Prottey-Jones.
Forsyth or something holding this.
Yeah.
Gonna hold it like that.
So only just hold it with two fingers.
Yeah, that's it. Des O'Connor.
Burt Bacharach.
Why do birds? Sorry, that was really loud in your ears, was it?
Why do birds? Birds.
Started a bit high. You get the idea. The sound of leather on leather.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. We're very leathery.
I mean, we're essentially dressed the same.
I'm colourblind. If I walked in and saw this, I wouldn't even know anyone was sat there.
Really? Until you smile.
Yeah. Because my cheeks are rosy because it's hot as well, so I don't know.
It is warm. Actually, it's quite nice in here, actually.
That's lovely to see you.
And to you.
Yeah.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well, mate. This is, what a way to start the year. Just chatting about, well, I don't know what we're going to chat about yet.
Who knows?
One of the first things I want to ask you today, mate, is actually quite a hard one and deep and quite personal. And that is, how do you get your beard looking like that?
Genetics. I got it from my mum. I'm joking. She doesn't have a beard. I really don't do much to it. It's just I have very, very straight hair for one, so it just hangs and flaps off my face. I wouldn't say it's thick and luscious. It just hangs well.
Hangs well, doesn't it?
I don't need to trim it or anything. It just.
What? It's just stopped growing at that length.
I'll trim the ends a little bit, but not much. No. Not much. Blessed. You know.
Blessed. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag beard love.
Blessed.
I bet that's
Brian Beard Blessed. Yeah.
That'll be an Instagram hashtag.
Beard Blessed.
So here we are at Bertie Blossoms.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's really nice. For those watching in black and white, we're sat on two lovely leather sofas or leather armchairs.
Yeah, there must be a word for them.
We need a smoking jacket on, really.
We really do.
There's a lovely vintage mirror on the wall.
I'm massively against smoking, but vaping jacket? No, I don't even like that.
Just a jacket.
Jackets are fine.
Just jackets, good.
Yeah.
And it's Ed Sheeran's restaurant.
It is very nice of him to let us come here.
It's good of Ed. Cheers, Ed. And we've got drinks on the way, and then we're going to have something to eat. So we've got our menus here. So we're going to chat about everything, music mainly, and then all country and all sorts. And then we're going to eat and drink stuff.
Be merry.
See how merry I can get you.
Oh God, good luck. Well, I don't really drink, so probably one will be enough.
Yeah, that's right.
Then I'll be talking about all sorts.
That's right. And you've already been busy today already, so thanks for joining us.
I've just come from a rehearsal.
Yeah.
In the furthest depths of East London.
Wow, where?
Bow Road or something.
Is it in Bow?
Yeah, it's near there.
Right.
Yeah.
What were you doing there?
I was rehearsing with Sir Jake Morrell.
Yes.
He's got a gig on Thursday at Water Rats, and yeah, it's sounding great. Should be a good night, I think. Emily Faye's supporting, and yeah, should be a cracker.
I'm hoping to go.
Please do. We've not done like a headline London show for quite a while, I don't think, because Jake never stops. He's a machine, but he's all up and down the country. So I think this will be a nice sort of, hometown-ish gig. Not, more for me than him now, but yeah. from Norfolk. But yeah, it's going to be a cracker, I think.
But you seem to be spreading yourself everywhere. Like you're producing. You're obviously doing a lot of co-writes. The Condors the other day.
That was really great. Actually, the Condors are wonderful. For anyone that doesn't know them, they're not really country at all, but there's a few little influences in there.
It's quite southern.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it reminded me of Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night
Oh
Sweats.
yeah. They're two unbelievable voices, like really great voices, really great songs. So they're working on their next release now, and it's proper exciting. So it's lovely to go to them and see where they sort of, you know, live and work and this, that and the other. And it's sort of, I don't know, I think sometimes that sort of thing brings a different vibe, you know, depending on where you're working and stuff, you know, because you can get very comfortable working in your own studio or in your own house or whatever. So going somewhere else where you need to, you know, have a bit of a trek to it, and I think it just gives you a slightly different frame of mind and perspective. So it was really nice. Loved it.
You producing with them as well? Is it just
no, at the moment it's just writing. So we're going to do some more as well, which is nice. So obviously didn't go too badly if they want to do it again. So thank you to them.
Amazing.
But Jess and I bond over 80s power ballads predominantly. That's not what we're writing, but it's just what we love to do. So.
Well, so 80s power ballads. So I was going to say, like, I can't pin you to anything.
No.
Obviously, you've played in Americana bands, and the Fartherline is fairly Americana sounding. And it's got some obviously country. Would you call it country?
Not really.
No.
I don't know what it is. It's very much a passion project and a sort of born out of necessity. Yeah, at that time. Those songs needed to be written and performed, you know, and it's.
But then you go on TikTok and you're screaming, you're screaming metal.
I know. And then I'm on TikTok because of you.
Yeah.
You said it was the future.
That's my fault. It is the future. It's the future, Len.
Yeah. I mean, I literally. I'm quite obsessed with watching pranks in India. There's a lot of them on there. Have you seen those? Yeah. Very good.
The thing is, though, the more that you watch of them,
I know,
that's all you'll get.
They keep showing up.
It's the algorithms.
They're the oddest things. But, yeah, Indian pranks. Who knew? Is that a genre?
Good name for a band.
It is, isn't it? Indian pranks.
Yeah.
I love that. But, yeah, I mean, I just lobbed them up and I was, you know, I asked you for some advice on the old hashtags. And Jake's been offering some advice as well.
Good.
And, I just put a couple of these sort of stupid little metal cover things up.
They're amazing.
Thanks, man. They're a lot of fun. They're a ridiculous amount of fun. So, yeah, songs from, like, Frozen and Greatest Showman and basically songs all sung by women, which seems to be my genre, which is nice. Songs sung by women.
But, you know, from metal to blues and 80 power ballads and Americana back to musicals.
Yep.
I mean, we've hung out a lot and we've spoken about all sorts of stuff and music and obviously everything you do. I've seen you play umpteen times. But how did it all kick off? Like, were you always musical as a kid?
Yeah, pretty much. So I started when I was about 5 playing the piano. Both my parents played piano. My mum was, well, they're both teachers. So my mum was a primary school teacher and played piano for, like, you know, your assemblies and stuff. And she taught at the primary school I was at. So I was kind of around that. My dad played the piano more so sort of Welsh hymns, you know. It was a lot of Welsh hymns I heard growing up. And, so piano was really the only instrument I was ever taught from a young age. And then from that, I taught myself other instruments. I think I was sort of rebelling against learning a lot of piano music, you know, very dated. I mean, incredible stuff. Like, I genuinely love it, and I think it's given me such an amazing foundation of music and theory and stuff. But actually, I think I just wanted to create music. I obviously didn't know that at the time. It just felt like piano lessons felt like another lesson. You know, you go to school a week and you still have to go and, you know, learn something.
Yeah.
And
I was the same.
I just had a bit of a weird sort of, I have a strange sort of, maybe a photographic-ish sort of memory. So I wasn't someone who looked at the music and played. You know, I looked at the music a lot and learnt it in my head. And then just stared at my fingers, you know, hoping that I didn't make a mistake, because that would have thrown me. Because I guess with photographic memories, you sort of learn things as a block, don't you? So it's like, if one thing's missing, you can't then just go, oh yeah, I'm there. It's sort of like, oh, well, I've learnt the entire page. So it's just, you know.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
I
never thought about that.
And to be honest, I've only really thought about it fairly recently, about how I actually learn stuff. I find remembering music very easy. I don't find remembering lyrics very easy at all. But yeah, music and stuff for some reason just stays with me for a very, very long time, you know.
I had one piano lesson.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted, because I started learning drums first. I was when I was like 5 or something mad. And and then, you know, like turning my brother's guitar upside down so I could play Something in the Way by Nirvana. Do you know what I mean? That was the first thing I ever learned. But then I was like, I really want to learn piano, and I had one piano lesson.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stretch an octave. My hands weren't big enough at the time. Couldn't stretch an octave, so I just gave up.
You know what they say?
Well,
I don't know what they say, but
what about octaves?
can't be nice.
And that was it. Like, I just totally give up. But for me, it was just I just had to figure everything out for myself.
Yeah.
And that
I'm
was
just
what you
glad
did.
I was very young when I was taught.
Yeah.
Because as I've got older, there's not a chance I'd put that time and effort in without getting massively frustrated about stuff. So, all my instrument learning was done by the time I was, I don't know, like 13 or something, I guess. Apart from singing, actually. Singing was genuinely the last thing I ever wanted to do.
Really?
Yeah, I still am petrified of singing, but it was at university when I started properly singing, you know. And what happened was, so I did a music degree, and obviously you're going to get incredible musicians at and I was living with a group of amazing musicians. So there was a drummer, there was a guitarist, there was a keys player, and a bassist or something, and a singer. And I was like, well, I play all of those things, but those guys didn't play another instrument, and so they were like phenomenal at one thing, you know, whereas I've tried to be okay at a number of things, you know. So I was like, oh God, I'm going to get left behind here, because, you know, they're sort of in a band, and I do the same thing as all of them. So I just basically thought, who's the weakest link? Who can I compete with? Yeah, I didn't tell anyone that until now, so hopefully he's not listening. But I just thought, well, maybe I should sing then, you know. And I sort of locked myself in my room at uni and just sang a lot, you know. Tried to just reach ridiculously high notes for a bit, and that was where, because someone played me basically Jesus Christ Superstar when I was at uni.
Right.
I'd never heard it, didn't know anything about it, wasn't into musicals at all, and suddenly I heard Steve Balsamo singing notes that I was like, that's really impressive. I reckon I might be able to do that. You know, took a bit of going, but that was kind of a bit of an inspiration, and I keep reminding him about this now because we've ended up as really good friends, which is extremely surreal. So I just call him Hero anytime I see him. So that's kind of where the birth of singing high notes came from for me, and it was fine at uni to do it, because you've got to really show your best work at uni. It's fairly impractical in any other musical sense to be able to sing like that, I have found. Country doesn't need it, that's for sure. Rock and metal to a certain degree has it. So I used to do a bit of that, but no, singing was really never my thing.
So how did Jesus Christ Superstar, the TV show, come about?
So basically, as I said, like when I heard the music at university, it sort of put my head into theatre a little bit. I sort of started to gain an appreciation for certain types of musical theatre, not all, and it sort of culminated in there being like a semi-pro production of Jesus Christ Superstar in the Midlands, which is where I was living. And I had a lot of friends who, you know, Gethsemane from Jesus Christ Superstar became a bit of a party piece for me. Like, it was one song I knew that I could do. And people were like, oh, they were holding open auditions for this production. They were like, oh, you should go for it, And I was like, not a chance. I mean, I don't look like Jesus at all. I don't think I had a beard at that point. I had a very short beard. And, and I'd looked like I'd had a few meals. So I was like, this isn't going to go well. And it was on a Sunday morning. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I had to go and sing Gethsemane, which is very high, very sort of emotional and, powerful as a song. And they basically phoned me later that day going, we'd like to offer you the role of Jesus, but you're going to need to lose some weight. It's always nice to hear.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't surprised by that. I mean, it's not like, what do you mean? So that was my life then. For like 3 months, I went to the gym every morning before work. I had a normal, everyday job. And I went to the gym at like 6 o'clock in the morning and then went to work every single day. And I lost 3 stone in 3 months, basically, before the show. And, fast forward 2 years from there, and it was the ITV version of Superstar, which started advertising on TV. And immediately when I saw the adverts, I was like, oh, no, this is going to be my next dilemma now. It's like, do I go for it or not? I didn't really have any, intention of being on TV or anything. It wasn't anything I'd really wanted to do. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. So I went, and it was one of those horrible cattle call open audition things held in a hotel in London, and it was just thousands of people, some of them dressed like Jesus, which was petrifying. And then it just became this sort of snowball effect of getting through rounds, and I was like, I don't know how this is happening. I sort of went so I didn't kick myself that I didn't not go. And people were going, oh, what happens if you get through on the TV? I was like, it won't. I just kept getting through them, and I was like, I don't really know how this is happening or why. But anyway, I think Andrew Lloyd Webber saw something in me. I think he liked the fact that I wrote music, which was amazing. And he did reference it a few times, which was great. And then we ended up going out to his house in Parma, up in the mountains, and singing for him. I had a wonderful chest infection, but my God, Spanish antibiotics are insanely strong. I was literally fixed within half an hour of having them, so I was practically dying. And then I don't know what they were, but if you can get any, that'd be great. Sorry, I digress. And so mad experience, and ended up getting through to the live shows. It was everything you imagine these shows to be. I generally loved the process, because it wasn't, at the time, it didn't feel like they were being documented, because you went on live TV. It sort of just felt quite safe still, Yeah. And then by the time the live shows came around, it just sort of broke me a little bit, It's because you get the instant comments from people, who've seen you on TV and instantly write something. People just took that in very different ways to each other, and I did not take it well. I had a bit of a breakdown after the first show, and I thought that was going to be the end of it, to be honest. I didn't think I'd be able to do another show. They didn't think I was going to be able to do another show, and I somehow pulled myself together enough to do, the next live show and stuff. It was mad, and I still had a job. They were very kind. They gave me like a sabbatical to sort of do this process, and then that finished, when the TV show ended, and David Hunter got me kicked out.
I was going to say.
That's right, my dear friend David. He still brings it up, actually, Dave, which is interesting. I played a gig for him the end of last year, and very kindly introduced me to everyone. I was playing keys for him and stuff, and I then told everyone that he, basically destroyed me on live TV, which was nice. Anyway, when the whole process finished, it was like, I think Dave, I don't know how long it was after that, but Dave got in the cast of Once, which is amazing. So it was like his dream. The experience ended. I was getting prepared to go back to work in Birmingham, and I was just like, I had no drive to want to go back to a normal job. I was like, well, if anything, I've proved something to myself, that I can compete at this level, to a certain degree. And I basically quit my job, which was scary, really scary. And about a week later, I got a phone call from David Grinrod, the casting director, saying, we want to offer you cover Judas, an ensemble track for the tour of Jesus Christ Superstar, the arena tour. So it blew my mind, So it was absolutely nuts, but it was the best thing that ever happened. It sort of, validated the fact that I'd left my job, and not too long after that tour finished, I then did a production of Rent on tour, which was amazing. And then I did Once and joined Dave in Once, which was just insane. So my first night was with him as the lead role, and I was, it's like the next male roll down or whatever on that sort of level. And
I never saw it. I really wanted to see it.
It was creatively, it was the most amazing job that I've ever done. And I'd do it again. I think I really would. Oh, food's arrived.
That cheese board looks immense.
Cheese. Steak o'clock.
That
Get in.
looks amazing.
That's unbelievable scenes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So, all this talk about you being a monster singer in the West End, does that mean you can dance?
I can move.
Can you?
For a big dude, yeah, I can move. Like I think it's the drumming thing. I've got rhythm, which helps.
So bridge the gap then, because most of the people listening will know you as a, for want of a better word, country but Americana rootsy artist. Mm-hmm. How and why What? Two questions.
Go on.
How and why?
So my sort of history of country. I mean, I'll be quite honest. I didn't know what Americana was until a couple of years ago. Probably.
I was talking to Jake Morrell a couple of weeks ago, and we basically came to the conclusion that it's all the things that we don't really know what it is. That's Americana.
Then great. I've always been that. Definitely always been that. But country for me was, my memories of country was like listening to things like Kenny Rogers and sort of quite easy listening country, and that would have been at home. That would have been like playing in the background over Sunday lunch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I grew up knowing those songs. Sort of scooting forward a little bit, I guess I really discovered that the songwriting in country was something I absolutely loved. It sort of it ticked so many boxes for me because it was people who still really sang, like undoubtedly sort of talented singers, telling stories, and I think that's what I loved about it.
It's almost it's naked, isn't it? You're exposed,
of course,
because
it can sound just as good with just an acoustic guitar than it can with like a full band. So off the back of university, when I finished my degree, that's when I really started getting into writing music and for other people, and it was that sort of, I was so determined at that age to sort of get my songs placed places and get a publishing deal and stuff like that. And I got all these sort of like I'm trying to think what they're called, like lead sheets.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So you'd subscribe to all these lead sheets of like, Universal are looking for a song in the style of blah 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 blah. I just remember the time, it was the most exciting thing, and it cost quite a lot to join these things. So it was sort of like my parents helped me out to subscribe to these things, and you sort of send these songs off a little bit blind because you don't know exactly what they want. And some of the services actually give you critiques back, a couple of months down the line. They send you back, so they either says your song has been forwarded to the label or to the artist or whatever, or your song wasn't quite right, and here's why. And they just rip into your song, and I just remember like it's quite off-putting really, because it's sort of, you'd always get, the lyric content's a bit cliche and it's a little bit, it's the sort of thing you'd hear like all the time. You know what I mean? It's sort of like the lyrics aren't strong enough or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you sort of listen to like popular music at the time, and it was always like in the club, baby, baby, in the club, and you're just going, really? And my lyrics weren't right. It was a bit of a letdown. And anyway, one of the listings was for a country artist, and obviously I was listening to a lot around that time. Shania was huge, and Faith Hill and that sort of stuff was big, and I was loving that at the time. And there was a British country artist looking for songs, and she'd had a bit of success at the time. Again, this is a long time ago.
Who was it?
Her name was Lucy Diamond, and she did a lot of really good stuff. And as it happens, I sent some songs in that I demoed, saying, I hope these are right for her.
Yeah.
And the feedback was, they're not quite right, they're not country enough, but who's the vocalist on the track? And I was like, that's just me, I just demoed it at home or whatever. And they were like, well, we'd really like to meet you. Do you play any instruments? So I was like, well, yeah, the tracks you hear are like me doing it. Anyway, so I went and met her and the manager. So I ended up playing session guitar and BVs for her for, 4 years maybe. It was a long time. So my first experience out of uni was session work in country music. So I got to play with people like Albert Lee and stuff. And
no way.
Yeah, because he guested on a lot of her stuff. Delbert McClinton and people like that, sort of slightly more bluesy and stuff. But essentially, she was an out and out country artist. She had a really great number of years, like number one UK country, number one country in Europe and stuff. And it was, it just gave me more of the bug, to be honest.
I feel like you're going to turn around and say, I'm actually 56.
I'm pretty old. Like, I don't have a problem talking about my age either, because I think it's given me so many experiences. I've lived through a lot of stuff that, if I was 23, I wouldn't have anything to write about probably.
Yeah.
I didn't by the time I was 23, but now I do. But I always had to work. It wasn't paying my bills.
Yeah.
So I taught drums for about 6 years. and then I worked for a charity in Birmingham, music charity, community music thing. That was the job I was in when Superstar came about. So they were the ones that gave me the sabbatical. But again, I did that for a number of years, always whilst being in a band or writing, you know, and releasing stuff. So
I know how that feels.
Yeah, exactly.
I worked for the Co-op while I was on tour in a punk band.
There you go. Yeah, that's it.
But I could literally just turn up and go, right, I'm here for like 3 days.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm off. Yeah.
Don't think you could do that now, but
yeah. Yeah, that was quite hard to do with having students, you know, because I had a lot of students. Because I worked for Yamaha as well, you see. So I taught my own students, but I also taught the teachers. So I was I had a number of years where it was really hard to sort of plan gigs. I had to book, you know, extensive time off and plan tours that far in advance because, you know, of my job. And I didn't think twice about it at the time, really. It was I couldn't do it now, you know, and you need that sort of stability a little bit more. But yeah, country started very young for me, and then to come back round to it, and to basically discover this scene that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing.
Well, it's almost like I still feel like it's early days in the scene as well.
Yeah,
Do you know
I think
what I mean?
so.
Like, I think you've come full circle and walking into the right moment.
Yeah, it's funny because I almost feel more in the scene now than I did when I was in the band.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because, you know, this isn't an arrogant thing at all, but I feel like we entered at a certain level because of finding management so early, you know. And I know there was a lot of speculation at the time that we'd been put together and stuff. It's absolute nonsense. You know, I started the band because it's what I wanted to do. And I really believed in the concept of 2 guys, 2 girls, you know, modern day Fleetwood Mac kind of idea. That's always what I wanted to do. Pretty much is still what I want to do. So it may happen again. I don't know. We'll see. Want to be in a band, Matt? Would you like to join?
Oh, we just need one more.
Just need one more lady. Apply within. I felt like because with the management support and subsequently the label, I feel like we probably skipped a few steps to a certain degree. But obviously I've done those steps before a lot, you know, so it's not as if I still feel like I've paid my dues, you know. Yeah. And now I'm extremely happy to be, you know, doing gigs again for other people, and doing different types of venues than we did with the band that we were in. I just feel like, just kind of feel like we missed that step a little bit. So I'm really glad to be back and, you know, making friends and contacts and working with, you know, a number of different artists within country and Americana in the UK. You know, it's sort of slightly more personable, which I really like.
What was your favourite moment?
Oh, it's getting emotional.
What was your favourite moment in 2019?
Of 2019?
It was a good one, wasn't it?
Yeah, kind of. It was a weird one. It was a really weird one because it was just full of change for me. Like, I suddenly had a child. I mean, not suddenly. There was like 9 months of sort of like, I think we're going to have a child. And then, so he was a joy. He still is. He's still with us. And he, musically, 2019, it was, question from the floor. Oh, go on.
One of my highlights was you singing at the British Country Music Festival.
I love the British Country Music Festival.
That's, believe it or not, that.
Oh, okay,
that's
cover.
where I was leading to.
Yeah.
That's what, when I said what was your favourite moment, it was because we've had conversations recently where,
I have said that. Yeah, generally have said that.
Such a good time, wasn't it?
I mean, 2019, despite not being in the band, I still played festivals that I knew I'd loved previously.
Yeah.
And again, we're sort of going back and doing them on different stages with different people. And it was amazing to see them from that perspective as well. So, the British Country Music Festival it's always hard with new festivals because you just like, you don't quite know what to expect. And many of them, you have a vague idea because you're like, you're going to be in a field, you know, there's going to be a porta cabin and maybe a tent with some food in it, you know, that's kind of where you're at. And then when you sort of have a festival that's A, indoors, and B, in the north of England, you kind of go, well, I don't really know
And in
to
the
expect.
ballroom as well.
In the ballroom, yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, I remember walking in because I was there for pretty much the whole thing because I was playing it a few times, and the sight when you walk in, to that ballroom was pretty unbelievable. And I think Ward Thomas might have been sound checking at the time when I got there. I think that was about right anyway. And it was so you kind of, it's little things like the gear's good because the sound's great, it looks brilliant, or the lighting was amazing, and you've just got that space,
Yeah.
And that was before actually venturing out and seeing all the other stages that they got popped up, and it was such a, I don't know, I think they should just be ever so proud about what they achieved that weekend, because everyone I spoke to was happy,
and it was such a good vibe as well.
Oh, the vibes were amazing
in the green room, and everyone's just all the artists. It wasn't one of those times where everyone was separated because they're playing at different times,
exactly,
and they don't want to hang out with everyone. Everyone was just having such a good time.
And I think you also felt like you could go and watch other artists, and not feel a million miles away from when you've got to be back, side the stage or whatever.
Yeah,
it was all indoors, and it just felt very close knit, and just a lovely sort of family vibe. There were people of all ages there, which was amazing. People who could literally just set up camp there and sit there all day. You know what I mean? And I think that's what made them such a receptive audience, And carrying on from what you were saying about like a highlight for me, it really was, because it was one of the first gigs the Fartherline ever played.
I was going to say
we've done two supports for Jessica Lynn.
Oh yeah.
One in the at the Lexington, and one at the Hare and Hounds in Birmingham. So they were really like trial and error. We didn't know what was going to happen, whether, and they actually went pretty well. So we did London, then Birmingham the following night, and by the time the Birmingham one came around, it was sort of like, I think we might be onto something. We've almost accidentally got a sound, It's because we didn't really have much rehearsal time. We just didn't. The thing now is you can record an album remotely, you just send parts to everyone and see what happens,
But of course, all the musicians bring their own sound to it.
Exactly,
don't they?
Exactly, and it's actually a reason why I chose the people I chose for that project, because I know that they've got such an identity. And again, like my guitarist, like I own him, Rich Watson is a phenomenal guitarist, but he's not in the country scene at all. But I know that he loves to play with like soundscapes and effects. So not only is he a great guitarist, like technically, he just has this amazing ear for atmosphere and that sort of stuff. And I think that really suits the music that we're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've used Rich on a number of projects over the years, just like essentially session guitar, stuff. And it just became a time where I just thought I want to do this all the time with Rich, and then the band sort of went through a few early changes. I mean, none of this was public knowledge because no one knew it was even a thing, But Steve Marks, who's ended up playing bass, is a phenomenal guitarist. He plays guitar for Gasoline and Matches, and he's an amazing player. So initially, I was going to have two guitarists and a bassist and a drummer and this, pedal steel, all of that sort of stuff. And it just became a nightmare to try and get us all together to rehearse.
That's the thing, isn't it?
It's just almost impossible because they were predominantly all based in the Midlands as well, and obviously me being in London pretty much all the time was quite difficult. Anyway, cut long story short, we had a rehearsal booked in the Midlands at Richie's studio, and I was driving up, had to hire a car because my wife and I share a car and stuff, and our drummer Elliot texts me just saying, my dad's gone into hospital, I can't do the rehearsal, and you go, oh God, really sorry, man, whatever. And I was like, and then my second thought was, oh, I've hired a car and I'm driving all the way up to the Midlands for no reason now, Anyway, and I knew we had these couple of gigs coming up, so we just thought, well, we'll still rehearse. So it was just myself, Rich and Steve. By this point, I should say that Steve said, well, I'll play bass then. I was like, you don't mind? As I say, phenomenal guitarist. And he's like, no, I play bass, for other things as well. I was like, great. So it was just a three-piece, And I thought, just when I thought my leg was going to have a rest from playing a kick drum, I was like back doing it again. I was like, oh, here we go. And so we rehearsed as a three-piece. And we really liked it. It really changed the sound completely. And so we've done every gig since like that. It's just been a lot easier we are technically still a 4-piece, but we've really not had the opportunity to expand on that sound at the moment. I'm not saying it won't happen. We've got tracks recorded now that feature drums and Elliot on kit and stuff.
What's the plan?
It's a good question. Me being the way I am, my mind does this. It just flitters from one thing to the next constantly. So if there's loads of production work on, then that I have to focus on that. And I've had loads going on, which is amazing, particularly towards the last part of the year. So, and
are they mainly country artists? And
do you know what? I've obviously my connections to country and stuff have helped, and I think it's this thing of going back to the root of country and the country scene a little bit, is that I've been able to talk to all these artists more now.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm sheltered from anyone. Like, I try and make myself open to conversations and for people to get in touch with me if they want to and stuff like that. Whereas I don't think that's always possible when you're in like a band or whatever. And I think through that, you sort of chat to people. A lot of people go, "Oh, do you want to write sometime?" And I have to go through phases of writing, because you can't just do a year of writing, because you'll either dry up or it's just not. Because writing is so speculative. You're sort of going into it. You go, no one's paying you to write a song. It's a case of, let's hope we write a great song that earns us both some money or gets some traction or whatever. So I think I've always tried to sort of go, okay, well, I'm going to dedicate this time to writing and then this time to production, and then try and tick all the boxes, And so I've had a number of country writes, which have been great. And, not just standard country. You get all sorts, all types, some more Americana than others, some very pop, some more traditional. And it's a great challenge to sort of try and write in all of those styles.
So who have you worked with recently?
So again, over sort of 2019, I'm going to try and reel them off. I'm going to forget people, but Jake Morrell, obviously. Done sessions with Twinny, Lisa Wright, Laura Evans, Jess Thriston, Vic Allen, Liv Austin. Was that her? Liv Austin. Oh man, there's loads. Who else? Oh, a chap called Dan Davidson from Canada, who's amazing. He's got quite a name for himself over there. He's brilliant. Jeffrey James from Nashville, Logan Brill from Nashville.
Yeah,
she's terrific.
Loads.
Man, there's loads of people. I'm trying to remember in my head which ones I've produced and which ones I've written with. So it's sort of.
But you're out on because you played session for 20 as well.
Yeah.
On some of the tour dates.
Yeah.
So you literally see more than anyone else.
Yeah.
You're right there in like the making process of writing music and recording music. You're out there playing it, and obviously you're out as a fan as well. It's mad.
It's. I always want that balance of trying to do everything, in as much as if I just do writing and production, I really miss performing. So obviously not having the band this last year has meant that I'm obviously more open and willing to do session stuff and play for friends and this, that and the other, and that's been great because I've obviously been a nice variety.
If you're only performing, do you miss producing and writing?
Yeah, so I have to have elements of everything, or at least know something's coming up, so if there's a tour or something coming up. So yeah, I struggle to do one of those things. I need everything somehow.
So having reeled off the names that you've just spent time writing with, producing, basically directing how they play and how they write, to a certain degree, what advice would you give those that just want to get to Jake Morrell, Laura Evans levels of touring, recording, radio play? Because there are so many musicians and singers and artists, songwriters now in the UK that have seen this British country music scene break, have seen it thrive, have seen the community, want to be part of it. What should everyone be doing to get to where you are, essentially?
It's so hard, because it's changed massively over the years. So when I was in my 20s and stuff, it was still a case of recording CDs in a studio, like a proper studio, burning off a CD and posting them and sending them to every record label, manager, everything, going, please listen to my stuff. You know, and occasionally you get like a letter back that is obviously a generic thank you. It's not what we're looking for at the moment, you know. And I did that throughout so much of my 20s, was just, you know, sort of rejection, just these letters. So that was that. And then obviously you scoot forward to when was the band sort of starting? It was like 2015 maybe, 14, 15. And to find a manager at the drop of a hat, like literally straight away, was nuts, because it was someone who was connected. It's someone who could get us seen by labels, you know. We still earned that deal. Like, it was just a case of we were put in front of the right people, but still had to impress them, you know. All I would say would be to, you know, I don't think there's such a thing as an overnight success, because we were called that, and you know, that didn't take into consideration like the 15 years that had gone before it, that you know, you'd been rejected so many times. And I think I would say, when you talk about people like Laura and Jake and Twinny even, they have some of the best songs going, I believe. I think their songs stand out in this genre, in this country. And I think that is a massive part of it. I think get the best songs you possibly can. I know there's a massive thing for co-writing. You know, I mean, obviously I do it a lot. I still think there's so much you can do by yourself. You know, just write, and write again. You know, constantly.
Do you think artists in the UK are at a disadvantage than if you were writing in Nashville?
I don't know, because I think it's like anything. I think their scene is obviously so much bigger, and that can work either way. It's either more competition or more chances of success. You know. It's going to take something pretty special from a UK artist to break America, because you are competing with essentially the country and the place that do it. I'm not going to say best, but you know, certainly that's what they're known for. I think a lot of people are very focused on trying to break America, when I still think they need to break this country, because it's all about perception. You know, people seem to be doing very well and, you know, touring and doing, you know, good support slots and stuff. And then you go, well, is that translating into sales of albums and this, that, and the other? And is it actually making those artists any money? And on the whole, I would say no, it's not. There's a whole audience out there that needs to be tapped into, and that's just this country. And I don't think it's even scratching the surface, to be honest. So, you know, doing these tours and gigs and stuff, I think is wonderful. I think radio stations need to do more, particularly like Radio 2 and stuff. They obviously do an amazing amount already. People like Bob Harris and stuff have been such great supporters. But I think on other channels as well, there just needs to be a little bit more play and just a little bit more awareness of what's going on.
Or acceptance that it's part of
exactly. It's still, I still feel like it's a bit of a dirty word, country music, and it's like, it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be. They're just great songs. But in all honesty, you know, I get asked a lot about, can you recommend any good managers and stuff, this, that, and the other.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think it's important for someone to have a manager?
I think it's important for someone to have a good manager, for sure. Like, I would say, I think I don't even know if it's a mistake, but it's a very obvious leap to go, oh, well, who are such and such managed by? We should get in touch with them. And it's like, but they've already got the artist that you like already. They're probably not going to want another one, you know. So it's trying to find someone, in my opinion, to find someone who is just hungry for it. They might not even have any experience of managing an artist, but someone who believes in you as an artist and is happy to knock down doors. That's what you need. It may well just be yourself, you know.
And it also doesn't have to be someone in the country music scene either.
Of course not.
You know, I think Florida Georgia Line, I was talking to... Who was I talking to the other day? Luke Roberts. I was with Chase Rice, and we were talking about Florida Georgia Line, and they're managed... Like, that band and someone else are managed by someone who's not even remotely part...
Absolutely.
Or got any interest at all in the country music scene, but just knows what to do and how to get
it's the
exposure.
same with the labels. You know, a couple of years ago, there was obviously a big craze for all the majors to have a country artist.
Yeah.
And you know that's just like a toe in the water, just going, well, let's see if this does anything. Oh, well, Sony have signed them, so we should probably get a country artist as well. And it just felt like it probably wasn't being done through a passion of that music, but just more this might be the next thing. This might be the next thing. But I know there are people at these labels who have a genuine passion for country music, and I think they need to almost step up and go, like, honestly, this is what you need. This is what you need. Let's look at a few different artists, because, you know, the amount these guys gig and tour and stuff now is unbelievable. You're never not going to be able to go out and see some of these artists play. And I find that side of the industry maybe has died a little bit, where it's not a case of going to gigs and, you know, seeing new artists anymore. I think that's a shame.
There was definitely a point where people weren't going to gigs.
Yeah.
Because they could watch it on telly or download it, whatever.
Of course.
But I quite often liken the country scene to my history with the punk scene.
Right, yeah.
Because I was fortunate enough to be playing when people just go in. If there was a punk gig on, people were going because it was a punk gig.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing now
Absolutely.
here in the UK. If there's a show on, and there's sometimes 2-3 shows a week.
I know.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's huge. So much around.
I just saw the lineup for what's that show in Scotland they just announced, Party on the Clyde? Or
yeah. On the Clyde, yeah. That's it's the same people as Buckle and Boots and stuff.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Kezia Gill,
yeah.
Laura Evans,
Gary Quinn's a big part of it.
Right, and huge. And I'm thinking, well, that's the same weekend as C2C.
Yeah.
I mean, who's not going to that? So
it's mad, isn't it? Yeah. It's mad. There's enough. I mean, you can see even by the addition of all these new festivals and stuff that are going on. There's definitely a fan base for it, and you know, when it was just C2C, that was just March catered for. You know, and even then, like, all the American artists are over, and they carry on touring then in March, like, off the back of it, and it's people will go and see them at C2C and go and see them the following week. You know, and it's like they need to be catered for all year round, because I think they'll go to shows. I think they'll absolutely go to shows.
So winding down.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of things I want to ask you, but one is, what do you find personally the hardest thing in what you do? Because we see, like, all the moments. We see British Country Music Festival.
Yeah.
See the producing. We see, you know, Long Road. We see all the stuff, putting out singles and stuff. And we see the social media, and we see the screamo on TikTok.
Screamo! Yeah.
What do you find hard as an artist?
I find, and this is just a personal thing, I find social media stuff really difficult.
Yeah, that's what I thought you might say.
I used to love it. Like, I used to love, particularly Twitter at the time. Like, when it sort of first came out, it was a big thing. I find it really difficult. I've always cared about what people think, which is a really dangerous thing. I hate seeing the negativity. So I try and be positive in all of my posts. Like, I try not to go on there and, you know, preach and spout about stuff. I try and always make light of everything. And I think that's just because that's what I want to see more of. Ideally, I'd love to be at a point where I just didn't have to rely on it, but I can't see any other way around it at the moment.
No.
And obviously, especially now having a son as well, I'm petrified for his future with social media, and I'm just so glad it wasn't around when I was a kid. Like, I wouldn't have wanted that in school. Too many opinions, and yeah, I think it's quite a toxic place. And I think a lot of musicians and loads of people I know really struggle with their minds, and I think social media is probably one of the biggest impacting issues with people's minds, and they're, you know, comparing themselves to everyone around them. And that's, again, I know a lot of people who compare themselves to everyone in their lane, or that they deem to be in their lane, and they're so focused on that they're not moving forward themselves, because they're always looking sideways. And I think that's a real shame. So yeah, that's probably the thing I find the hardest is the social media stuff. And yet it's really good for other stuff. So it's kind of it's a tricky one. I think you have to take the rough with the smooth, but I think the rough can be very damaging for sure.
What can we expect more from Tim Prottey-Jones in 2020?
2020, I would say. So we've got a load of production stuff that still hasn't seen the light of day. So stuff I was doing last year that still hasn't been released. I've just been working with an artist from LA called Erin Bowman, who is wonderful. So I've been doing her whole album. So that's been like my biggest project for the last half of 2019, and it sort of really reminded me of like an amazing time in music when Alanis Morissette was like, you know, the biggest thing around.
Cool.
So that's the sort of first bit of the year sorted. Obviously playing for people like Jake and whatever, which is amazing. Doing a bit of writing, people like the Condors and stuff I've already done this year, so there'll be more of that. Fartherline, we're already confirmed for Buckle and Boots, so there'll probably be some other festivals with them. We're gonna sort of go back to almost starting again with that to a certain degree, whereas the songs all came from me and then kind of got the guys to add stuff. I'm actually going to go into the studio with Rich and hopefully Steve as well, and actually not rework the songs, but sort of start from scratch on them again. So we ended up recording stuff and then playing them live actually took them in a slightly different direction, and a direction we actually preferred. So there'll be more of that for sure. And I think there'll be some other opportunities from a live perspective, like more performance stuff. So there's a show that's in the works. I can't say too much about it at the moment. Okay. A show that's in the works, which would be a touring show, and it's just been away and done some recording for that. And there's some really great people involved, most of them in the sort of country scene as well. So look out for that. So
I saw that on social media.
Yeah. Old socials, eh? And you only saw what we wanted you to see. So that'd be quite exciting. And then there is a prospect of another sort of project, band kind of thing on the go, which I'm sort of writing for now, but I'm not going to rush this one. Again, saying what we were saying about, you know, the quality of songs of like Jake and Twinny and stuff. I want the songs to be, you know, that level and beyond it, if that's possible, before anything's done. But it's just really nice to be in a position now where I know who I work really well with. So whereas I often just hide away and just write for myself, I think there's a few key people that I really trust with my music now, which is nice. And it'll be about that, so more collaborative stuff, trying to get the best stuff possible out there, I think.
Cool.
But yeah, that'll all be coming this year for sure.
Good. And then there's our band. We just formed a band.
We've just formed one, which is very good. What should we be called?
What should we be called?
Two Beards and a Blonde? Yeah?
Two Beards and a Blossom.
Nice. Let's do it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of No Cause But The Truth in association with the British Country Music Festival. We would love it if you subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode, and extra love if you'd give us a lovely 5-star rating. You can even review the podcast and leave a comment with who you'd like to see on. You can find me on social media at Matt Spracklen. See you next time.